Hello, everyone. It's so great to be here, and I'm so excited I have a microphone like this. Before I start, I actually wanted to invite somebody else up on stage with me. This is little me. This is actually the least embarrassing photo that I could find, so bear with me. I wanted to bring little me on stage with me at the moment because of two reasons. One, little me had mad stage fright, so I think little me would be super proud that we made it. And little me would have never predicted that this is how our life story would have ended up. And in fact, I'm starting to learn that the most unpredictable stories, or most unpredictable lives make the best stories. Because little me had it all figured out. She was going to be a pharmacist. And it made a lot of sense because I was really good at science, and my dad worked for one of the most important pharmacies in the United States. And my parents convinced me that I should be a pharmacist. And it made sense. Good money, I would have made my parents proud. But as I got older, I started to get more and more uncomfortable with this feeling of wanting to be a pharmacist. And something inside of me was telling me I wanted something else. The older I got, that feeling grew. And that was the first time I realized that there was a difference between the feeling of should and the feeling of must. And I want you to think about when we start to write our life stories, we have both of these. And that's because our head and our heart, they speak different language. Our head speaks in shoulds, and our heart speaks in musts. And they're not in opposition to one another. They actually work really well together, but one of them is just a little bit louder. In your head, it's the head. The head is our thinking side. It's the side that likes to take all of the external sources of information, facts, opinions, your parents' opinions, and it likes to take all of these and give them to you in the form of a should. You should go to this university. You should be a pharmacist. You should eat more vegetables. But when we think about writing our life story, if we rely too much on the head, on the should, it's not really your story. And this is where the heart comes in. The heart speaks in musts. It actually doesn't speak at all. It doesn't use any words. Instead, it uses instinct or intuition. In fact, when I normally speak of the heart, I actually use the word soul. But I really wanted to use emojis for this talk, and the only emoji that I could use was the heart. Otherwise, I'd have to use this one. That one's kind of scary. So we're going to go back to heart. The heart is not the physical organ. Instead, it's that feeling of that longing, that yearning, that must, that instinct, the intuition. It's the thing that was telling me I didn't want to be a pharmacist. I wanted to be a teacher. So what we're going to talk about is when we write our own stories, how do we balance the should and the must? We actually have to talk to the head in its own language, the should. And we're going to give it 4 reasons why it should trust the must of your heart. And here goes. The first one, your heart is going to choose the better story. My friend Adrian has this quote, when faced with 2 choices, choose the better story. And I know better is relative, and I know it's probably gotten me in trouble a few times. What I mean by better is it's more interesting, it's more entertaining. Our hearts want that adventure for us. They want that heroic journey. They want heroes. They want villains. They want emotional highs and lows. They want that excitement for us. But our heads usually talk us out of it. For me, I did become a teacher. And in my final year of university, one of our professors actually challenged us to step outside of our comfort zone. That's heart stuff. After living with my head for the last 4 years, I decided to take that assignment really seriously, and I realized I loved stepping outside of my comfort zone and following my heart. So I decided to get a little crazy and step out even farther. I did what's so cliche. I decided I want to do what scares me the most. And at that time, it was to be as far away from my friends and family as possible. So the cliche thing I did is I took a globe and I spun it and I put my finger on the globe and said, I'm going to move wherever it lands. I landed in the Pacific Ocean. So I moved my finger down a tiny bit and then landed in New Zealand. 4 months later, I packed up and I moved to Auckland and I became a science teacher. And it wasn't easy. There were a lot more lows than there were highs as I navigated a new culture. But I have to say, that choice single-handedly changed the trajectory of my life story. Which leads me to number 2. Hearts know what you need. Your head knows what you want, the diamond, the treasure. Your heart knows what you need. You actually have to go through some crap, that's the poop emoji, to get to the treasure. And your heart knows this. And it's not about going through the crap for the crap's sake. It's because inside that little poop emoji is a lesson that your heart knows you need to learn. And again, learning and changing and transformation, it actually hurts. It's uncomfortable. But inside of the discomfort, you learn something about what it is you really need to grow. For me, when I got back from New Zealand, I moved back to the United States and I became a full-time science teacher. And I loved my job. I knew I made the right choice. But I became addicted to work. I became a workaholic. For 7 years, all I did was work, hours and hours and hours. And I really don't remember having much of a personal life. I wouldn't say that I forgot about my heart, but I definitely neglected it. And that's why after 7 years of workaholic, my husband and I decided to follow our hearts again. We sold everything that we owned, and we picked up and we moved to Spain. And I was so proud of myself because I arrived in Spain with 2 suitcases only, which was a big deal for me. I had a lot of clothes. Only 2 suitcases, but no job. And like I said, I'm a self-professed workaholic. And when I first got there, I was incredibly uncomfortable. I was anxious. I was lonely. I was overwhelmed. I was really starting to regret that chapter of my life story. I was in the poop emoji. But soon my heart started telling me what I must do. I needed a break. I needed to relax. No lists or goals or tasks that my brain was telling me I should do would quell my discomfort until I listened to my heart. And I started doing things that I used to love. I started swimming again. I started photography again. Most importantly, I started cooking again. And this is important because my heart had taken me through that crap to teach me there was a treasure in there. I had no professional cooking experience or professional business experience. But because I listened to my heart, I actually decided to take on a new challenge. And my friend and I created a successful cooking and catering company. And soon we were cooking over 100 meals a week, and we fed our clients. More importantly, I fed my soul. And that brings me to number 3. Hearts know who you really are. Have you seen this new chipmunk emoji in your phone? It's there. Just look through. It's my new favorite emoji, and I think it represents me because I'm so excited and full of energy all the time. So now I sign all my texts with this chipmunk emoji. The heart knows who we are, okay? Our head does too, and our head is pretty good at reinventing ourselves. Because at this point in my life story, I had reinvented myself several times. And our head can keep up with us really well. But one thing the head also does is it can convince you to believe when you're not so great. Some really negative things about yourself. Things that aren't true. And that's why listening to the heart is so important. Because the heart knows just how wonderfully, infinitely creative and strong and powerful and loving you really are, even when your head can convince you you're not. This happened to me when I moved to Hong Kong. I had just come from this wonderful life of traveling the world after leaving Spain, and I had met all these amazing people, I had done all these great things, and I was not ready to let go of that chapter of my life. But I had to. Moved to Hong Kong, and the thought of writing a new chapter was too overwhelming for me. I became extremely depressed. I got into my bed, and I stayed there. I stayed there several days, and a week went by, and all of a sudden, I got this image from my heart. It was an image of a goldfish. Of course, I ignored it. What's a goldfish have to do with me? I'm in bed feeling depressed because my life chapter is over and I have to open a new one and I'm not ready. And then the goldfish came back. And then I remembered, years ago, I had an idea for a children's story that had a goldfish in it. But my head said I was too depressed, and what do I know about writing? But my heart kept urging me on. So finally one day, I moved out of the bed a little bit, picked up a notebook, and then got right back into bed. I started writing, and writing, and writing, and the pen wouldn't stop. Before I knew it, I had a little children's tale about a goldfish that experiences great life changes and feels all these feelings as it goes through the changes. And I even named it, Freckles Felt Fine. And just when my head had convinced me, what do I know? I'm not good at anything. I don't want to start over. My heart said, oh, you're an author now. That's what you are. And it was right. And that leads me to number 4. Our hearts actually make the brain's job easier. And remember, the brain speaks in should. The brain thinks a lot. The brain is going to go through as many external sources of information and opinions to come up with something for us, and that takes a lot of time. But the hearts, they know. They know immediately what you want, what you need, and who you really are. So if your brain could just trust the must of your heart, it would save it a lot of time. Now this sounds tricky for a lot of us, so I just want to give you 3 ways that you'll know when you're trusting the must. And the first one is, it's frightening, yet strangely familiar, like the ghost emoji. When we trust the must of the heart, it's going to still feel really scary to make that choice. But when you make it, it feels strangely familiar, like a déjà vu, or something that was meant to be. For me, it was the first day of my job writing my name on the board as a teacher. I was still unsure if I made the right choice, but my parents wanted me to be this great, rich pharmacist. But writing my name on the board that day, it felt so scary. I was so nervous, like the M for miss was like all wiggly. But I knew that it felt really strangely familiar. I had made the right choice. The second thing, it's not always convenient. The must of the heart comes at times that we least expect it. In fact, for me, quitting my job as a teacher after 7 years, probably for many people, seemed like a big mistake. I had just received a promotion and a really nice raise. But something within me was saying, no, there's something else out there for you. And I had to trust that. And that feeling of knowing that it's not always convenient, it should feel like you're not running away from something, but you're running towards something. That's when you know you're trusting your heart. And last, it almost feels magical. It's definitely emotional. And a lot of people describe it as, I don't know, just clicks. For me, it happened when I saw my books print out for the first time. I almost had an out-of-body experience, looking down at myself reading something I never knew was something in me. Little me would have been so proud. And I want you to know, I actually took my own advice when I wrote this talk. I'm now a PhD student, and I have a lot of information that's really, really jargon-filled and boring, and my head said I should be telling you about that. Then I sat down and I asked my heart, and I rewrote the whole thing, because I needed to trust the must. This is what you needed to hear. Thank you.